The war had ended 2 years ago, but Captain Adrian Cole still woke up every night to the sound of explosions that no longer existed. He had been one of the last surviving soldiers from the Battle of Erebos 9, a brutal campaign that almost erased an entire human colony. The alien species known as the Visari had struck without warning, turning forests into ash and cities into glass. Adrian had fought until his body could not move and his squad was gone. When rescue ships finally came, they found him half buried under burnt debris, clutching a broken rifle and whispering the names of his fallen team. Now, back on New Terra, peace felt like a strange dream. The colony world was beautiful. Blue skies, silver oceans, and tall glass towers, but Adrian saw only ghosts. The people here smiled, laughed, and rebuilt their lives, yet inside him the war still burned. His medals lay inside a drawer untouched. His reflection in the mirror showed a man who no longer knew what purpose meant. He spent his days working as a mechanic in the colony's lower docks, fixing damaged drones and transport shuttles. Machines made sense. They broke and you fixed them. People were harder. Every time someone thanked him, he simply nodded and walked away. Most nights he sat near the memorial wall, where the names of the fallen shimmered under soft blue light. He would sit there for hours, silent as the twin moons rose above the colony dome. That was where he first saw Dr. Ilara Venn. She wasn't a soldier. She was a biologist, part of the Interstellar Reconstruction Corps, a team that studied ruined planets to help them heal. Ilara often came to the memorial wall too, carrying a small tablet filled with data about the ecosystems that had been destroyed by war. While others mourned the dead, she tried to bring life back to worlds that had lost it. Adrian noticed her the way someone notices light after living too long in the dark. She had calm eyes and a quiet smile that didn't try to fix him or pity him. She simply smiled like someone who still believed in tomorrow. One evening, when she saw him sitting alone again, she approached. "You come here often," she said softly. Adrian didn't look at her. Old habits. Soldiers visit graves. Even when they don't exist. She smiled faintly. "I visit for another reason. To remember why we rebuild." That was how their strange friendship began. At first, they only shared quiet moments at the memorial wall. Then, small talks followed, about plants that could grow in toxic soil, about how the colony's sky was filled with engineered clouds to protect against radiation. Ilara spoke with calm passion, and for reasons he didn't understand, Adrian listened. She never asked him about the war. Maybe she already knew. Or maybe she understood that silence was his shield. Days turned into weeks. Adrian started helping her without realizing it, repairing damaged survey drones, carrying equipment to her research site near the edge of the colony dome. She thanked him every time with that same gentle smile. It wasn't pity. It was something warmer, something that reached the cracks he thought were permanent. One afternoon, she invited him to her lab. The air inside was filled with soft green light from growth tanks where alien plants floated in nutrient gel. "These were collected from Erebos 9, she explained. "Even after all the destruction, life tried to come back. That's what amazes me about biology. It refuses to give up." Adrian stared at the faintly glowing leaves. "Erebos 9, he whispered. "I didn't think anything survived there." "Some things always survive," she said quietly, glancing at him, "even when they don't know why." For the first time in years, Adrian felt something he hadn't felt since before the war. Peace. It scared him. But peace didn't last long. One night, the colony's perimeter sensors detected an unknown signal, a weak transmission from deep space, carrying fragments of Visari language. The authorities dismissed it as interference from old satellites, but Ilara didn't believe that. She had recently received a strange object through one of her research drones, something half mechanical and half biological. When she showed it to Adrian, he felt his chest tighten. It looked like a living machine, pulsing with soft blue veins, whispering in static. It was Visari tech. "I found it in the western desert," Ilara said, her voice low. "It shouldn't be there. The war ended. They shouldn't be here." Adrian stared at the thing, memories rushing back like fire. The same glow, the same hum, the same feeling of cold dread. "That's not old debris," he said finally. "It's new," she nodded slowly. "Then someone's building something out there. Maybe the war isn't over." Adrian wanted to walk away. He had promised himself never to pick up a weapon again. But when he looked at Alara, standing there in the dim light, fearless and calm, something inside him shifted. She wasn't a soldier, but she was fighting in her own way, fighting to make life possible again. And for the first time, he wanted to fight for something good. The next few days passed in tension. Adrian started gathering information quietly, using contacts from his military days. He found reports of missing transport drones, vanished survey crews, and strange energy spikes in the nearby wastelands. It all pointed to one truth. The Visari were back, or at least someone using their technology was. He told Alara to stay inside the colony walls, but she refused. "If they're using biological tech, I can help you understand it," she said. "You'll need me," he sighed. "You don't understand what's out there." Her smile was calm but determined. "Maybe not, but I understand you, and I trust you." That simple statement hit harder than any bullet. Together they prepared to leave the safety of the dome. Adrian pulled his old combat armor out of storage. It was scratched, scorched, and heavier than he remembered. As he tightened the straps, Alara handed him a new helmet she had modified with upgraded sensors. "Just in case," she said. "You'll need to see what's hidden." He smiled faintly for the first time in years. "You're not afraid of me." "I'm not afraid of broken things," she replied. "Sometimes they're just waiting to be useful again." They left at dawn in a small hovercraft, heading toward the wastelands beyond the colony border. The air shimmered with heat and dust. The land was empty, lifeless, but beneath it, Adrian knew, something was watching. Hours later, they found the source of the strange readings, a crater filled with half-buried Visari machinery. The ground pulsed faintly as if alive. Adrian's hands tightened on his rifle. Memories of fire and screams flooded back, but Alara's calm voice kept him grounded. "Look," she whispered, pointing. In the center of the crater was a small sphere, metallic, breathing slowly like a living heart. The same blue veins ran across it, glowing softly. Adrian reached for it, but the moment his fingers touched the surface, the thing came alive. Lights flared. The air vibrated. Alara shouted, "It's transmitting!" A blast of light shot into the sky, forming a narrow beam that vanished among the clouds. The hovercraft's sensors screamed warnings. Adrian grabbed Alara's hand and pulled her back as the crater began to collapse. They dove behind a rock as debris exploded around them. When the light finally faded, the crater was silent again, but something had changed. The colony's communication towers began flashing emergency signals. From miles away, red lights glowed on the horizon, warning beacons triggered by orbital sensors. Adrian's wristcom buzzed with static. Then a voice broke through. "This is Central Command. Unknown fleet detected entering system. All defense units stand by." Alara looked at Adrian, fear and determination mixing in her eyes. "What have we done?" she whispered. Adrian stared at the darkening sky. "They were waiting for a signal," he said quietly. "And we just gave it to them." He rose slowly, dust covering his armor, eyes hard with purpose. The soldier he had tried to bury was alive again, but this time he wasn't fighting out of duty or anger. He was fighting because of her, because of that one smile that reminded him humanity still had hope. He looked at Alara and said softly, "I won't let them take this world, not again." As the first alien lights appeared in orbit above New Terra, Adrian Cole, the broken soldier, found his reason to stand once more. He wasn't fighting for orders. He was fighting for her smile and the humanity it represented. When it faded, silence followed. But it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. Back in the colony dome, alarms screamed through every corridor. Red lights flashed. Ships launched from the hangars like silver arrows. The people of New Terra, who had lived in peace for years, suddenly remembered the fear they thought they'd buried. Captain Adrian Cole and Dr. Alara Venn returned to the colony in their dust-covered hovercraft. Soldiers were already setting up defense turrets along the outer walls, and the sky was filled with emergency drones. The air smelled like ozone and panic. Adrian walked straight to the military command center. The guards hesitated when they saw his old combat armor, but when he gave his name, the doors opened without question. Inside, the large holomap showed dozens of red dots approaching from the outer system. A gray-haired officer looked up. "Cole, we thought you were done with us." Adrian nodded slightly. "I was, But it looks like the war didn't agree. The officer gave a grim smile. Then you came back at the right time. The Visari are moving again, and this time they're not sending scouts, they're sending warships. Ilara, standing beside Adrian, spoke up. We found something, a Visari signal beacon. It activated when we touched it. It must have been a locator. The officer frowned. You mean you turned it on? Adrian's jaw tightened. We didn't know what it was, but now we do. The officer exhaled slowly. Then we have less than 24 hours before they reach orbit. We'll start evacuations immediately. Adrian shook his head. You can't move that many people in time. If the Visari want this world, they'll destroy the ships before they leave the atmosphere. Then what do you suggest, Captain? Adrian's voice was calm, steady. We fight. Like before. The room fell silent for a moment. The officer studied him, then nodded. We'll need every soldier we can get. That night, the colony turned into a fortress. Defense drones hovered along the walls, railguns were mounted on towers, and energy shields flickered into place above the domes. The once peaceful city now looked like a sleeping dragon waking from a long dream. Ilara stayed by Adrian's side through the chaos. She was no soldier, but she worked with the engineers, helping to power up the bioreactors that fed the shield grid. Her knowledge of Visari technology was suddenly invaluable. While others prepared weapons, she and Adrian studied the beacon they had found. It was locked inside a sealed chamber, humming faintly with blue light. Can you turn it off? Adrian asked. Ilara shook her head. It's not a signal anymore, it's alive. It's growing. The beacon's surface was changing, forming strange patterns like veins. It wasn't just calling the Visari. It was building a network, connecting itself to something beyond human understanding. If this thing links to their ships, Ilara said, they'll know everything about our defenses. Then we destroy it, Adrian said firmly. But before they could, the ground shook. A deep rumble rolled through the colony and the lights flickered. Impact detected, shouted a voice over the comms. Orbital bombardment. One of their ships is in range. Adrian grabbed Ilara's arm. We need to move. They ran through the corridors as explosions rocked the dome. Through the transparent roof, Adrian saw fire streaking down from the sky. The Visari had arrived. The next hours blurred into chaos. Visari landing pods slammed into the outer perimeter. Their soldiers, tall, dark figures with glimmering armor, poured into the colony's outskirts. Human defense drones opened fire, and the battle for New Terra began. Adrian was back in his element. His old instincts came alive as if the years of peace had been a dream. He moved through the command zone with sharp precision, calling out positions and directing squads. But this time, something was different. He wasn't fighting for medals or orders. He was fighting to protect the people, the children, the workers, and above all, Ilara. She refused to hide. While the soldiers fought outside, she worked in the central power hub, keeping the energy shields online. Adrian checked on her whenever he could, even during the heaviest bombardments. Each time he saw her, still calm and determined amid the chaos, it gave him strength. During one such moment, she looked up at him and smiled even as alarms blared around them. You shouldn't be here, she said. I could say the same to you, he replied. I told you, she said softly. I trust you. That smile, small, bright and real, cut through the noise of battle like sunlight through smoke. Adrian turned and ran back into the fight, his heart steady. Hours passed. The colony's outer walls held longer than anyone expected, but the Visari were relentless. They moved with cold precision, pushing humans back sector by sector. Adrian led a small team of volunteers to hold the western gate. Laser fire painted the night sky, and explosions shook the ground. When his team was nearly overrun, Ilara's voice came through his comm. Adrian, the beacon. It's doing something. You have to see this. He fought his way back toward the lab, plasma bolts slicing the air around him. When he arrived, Ilara stood beside the beacon, her eyes wide with fear and fascination. The device had opened like a flower, revealing a glowing core. Holographic symbols floated above it, Visari code, but they were shifting, becoming something else. Human letters. It's learning, Ilara whispered. It's adapting to our systems, Adrian. It's trying to talk. Talk? Adrian stepped closer. The core pulsed, and a deep, synthetic voice filled the room. We remember you, Ilara gasped. It knows us. Adrian's eyes narrowed. They're not just coming to destroy us, they're coming for revenge. The beacon's voice continued, mechanical and cold. You took our worlds. Now we take yours. Adrian raised his rifle and fired into the device. The room flashed with light as the bullet hit the core. The beacon screamed, a sound like tearing metal, and went dark. Ilara shielded her eyes. You killed the signal, Adrian reloaded. Then maybe we bought some time. But the relief was short-lived. The ground rumbled again, harder this time. On the holomap, a massive shape entered orbit, a Visari dreadship, large enough to blot out the stars. Ilara stared at it, her voice shaking. That's not an attack ship. That's a colony destroyer. Adrian clenched his fists. Then we stop it before it reaches the surface. The command center was chaos when they arrived. Officers shouted orders, screens flickered, and reports of casualties filled the air. Adrian stepped forward. You can't stop that thing from here, he said. You'll need to take the fight up there. The officer stared at him. You're suggesting we attack a dreadship? Adrian nodded. It's the only way. If we destroy the control core before it reaches low orbit, we save New Terra. That's suicide. Adrian smiled faintly. Maybe, but someone has to try. Ilara grabbed his arm. You're not going alone. He looked at her gently. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is, she said firmly. You fight to protect. I fight to rebuild. We're the same. He wanted to argue, but her eyes were steady, her smile unwavering. He knew he couldn't stop her, and truthfully, he didn't want to. Within an hour, they were aboard a small stealth shuttle heading into the dark sky. Below them, New Terra burned and fought. Above, the massive shadow of the dreadship waited, silent and deadly. As they approached, the ship's surface shimmered with alien symbols. Ilara monitored the readings. Its shields are organic, she said. They grow and repair themselves. We'll have to slip in through one of the open bioports. Adrian grinned slightly. Guess it's time to knock on the door. The shuttle descended through the alien haze, engines whispering. The moment, they crossed the dreadship's outer barrier. The air turned blue with energy. Lights pulsed along the walls like veins. It felt alive. Ilara whispered, This ship isn't just technology. It's a creature. Adrian tightened his grip on his rifle. Then let's cut out its heart. Inside the alien corridors, the walls pulsed with light, and distant sounds echoed like whispers. Adrian led the way, Ilara close behind carrying a portable EMP device. Their goal was the central control core, the brain of the dreadship. They moved quickly, avoiding patrolling drones and strange living cables that shifted along the floor. Once Ilara stumbled, and Adrian caught her arm. For a moment they just looked at each other, breathing hard in the eerie light. Still trust me? He asked quietly. Always, she said, smiling faintly. They continued deeper until they reached a vast chamber filled with swirling energy. At its center floated the control core, a glowing sphere larger than a house. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Ilara began setting up the EMP device. Once it's ready, this will shut down every Visari system in range. Adrian nodded, scanning the shadows. Then we hold until it's done. But even as he spoke, the chamber's walls shifted, and from the darkness emerged Visari warriors. Dozens of them, their armor reflecting cold light. Adrian raised his weapon, standing between them and Ilara. The war had returned, and this time he wasn't running from it. He was ready to fight, not for orders, not for glory, but for her, and for the world that had given him a reason to live again. As the first shots rang out and the core began to glow, Adrian whispered under his breath, "For her smile, and for humanity." The alien dreadship pulsed like a living star above New Terra, filling the sky with a faint blue light. Inside its heart, the air trembled with strange energy. The walls moved as if they were breathing. Every shadow whispered in a language that did not belong to humans. Captain Adrian Cole stood with his rifle ready, his armor scorched and cracked. Beside him, Dr. Alara Venn worked quickly, her hand steady as she activated the EMP device. The silver capsule hummed softly, its timer glowing red. "How long?" Adrian asked, eyes fixed on the glowing core in the center of the chamber. 7 minutes, Alara said. "After that, every system in this ship will shut down." He nodded. "That 7 minutes will have to survive." Around them, Visari soldiers began to appear, tall, sleek creatures in dark armor that shimmered like oil. Their weapons hissed with plasma light. The air filled with the metallic scent of energy and fear. Adrian took a deep breath. He had faced these enemies before. Back then, he had fought for orders and for survival. But now he fought for something deeper, for Alara's courage, for the people of New Terra, and for the fragile hope she had given him with her smile. The Visari moved closer. Adrian opened fire. Blue plasma bolts lit up the chamber, tearing through the alien ranks. He moved like a ghost, his every step measured, his focus absolute. The aliens tried to surround him, but he stayed between them and Alara. "Keep working," he shouted over the noise. "I'm not stopping," she answered, adjusting the device's power coils. The first wave fell, but more came. Adrian switched to grenades, the explosions shaking the chamber. The dreadship itself seemed to roar in pain, its walls flashing with angry red light. A plasma blast struck near his leg, throwing him to the ground. Alara gasped and ran to him, helping him up. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," he said, though blood trickled down his armor. "Just keep that thing running." She pressed her hand to his arm for a second, meeting his eyes. "Promise me you'll come back." He gave a faint smile. "I already did." The words gave her strength. She turned back to the device, fingers flying over the control pad. The timer dropped. 5 minutes left. Then the dreadship spoke. A deep voice filled the chamber, echoing from everywhere at once. "You are alone, human. You cannot stop what has begun." Alara froze. "It's the ship. It's alive!" Adrian raised his weapon toward the glowing core. "Then let's kill it again." The voice continued, colder now. "You brought death to our world. Now we bring silence to yours." Adrian fired a long burst straight into the core. The shot hit the energy shield and exploded, shaking the room. "Guess we'll see who gets silenced," he muttered. The Visari came again, faster, more desperate. Adrian fought until his arms burned. For every alien he dropped, 2 more came forward. Sparks rained from the walls. The EMP device was nearly charged, its hum growing louder and sharper. Alara risked a glance at him. 1 minute left. Adrian nodded. "Then we hold it together for 1 more minute." She smiled faintly, even as chaos raged around them. "You always make it sound easy," he chuckled. "That's because I've got you watching my back." At 30 seconds, the floor cracked. A giant shape emerged from the shadows, a Visari commander, twice the size of the others, its armor glowing with dark runes. Its weapon was a living blade that pulsed with blue light. Adrian raised his rifle, but the alien swung. The impact sent him flying against a pillar. His armor split, pain lancing through his side. "Adrian!" Alara screamed. He forced himself up, vision blurring. The alien raised its weapon for the killing blow. Adrian reached for his sidearm, empty. His eyes darted toward the EMP device. It was almost ready. He shouted, "Alara, when it reaches 0, hit it." "But you do it." The commander lunged. Adrian rolled aside, grabbing a fallen alien blade. It burned his glove, but he held on, charging straight at the creature. Steel and plasma collided in a storm of light. The alien struck again, cutting across his armor, but Adrian didn't stop. With a roar that came from the deepest part of his soul, he drove the blade into the creature's chest. Blue fire erupted and the commander fell. The timer hit 0. Alara slammed the button. The EMP exploded in a wave of white light that filled the entire chamber. The sound vanished. For a moment, everything froze. The aliens, the ship, even the lights themselves. Then the world went dark. Adrian fell to his knees as the power surge knocked him back. The ground trembled. Sparks rained from the walls. The dreadship's heartbeat stopped. It was over. When the light faded, the silence was total. Alara coughed, pushing debris away. "Adrian!" He lay motionless beside the shattered core. For one horrible moment she thought he was gone. Then he stirred, groaning softly. You did it," he whispered. "We did it," she corrected, kneeling beside him. The dreadship was dying around them. The walls cracked, energy leaking out like blood. They had to leave before it collapsed. "Come on," she said, pulling his arm over her shoulders. Together they stumbled through the dark corridors, lit only by the faint glow of dying systems. The ship groaned like a sinking giant. They reached their shuttle just as explosions ripped through the dreadship's spine. The engines roared to life. Alara took the controls while Adrian collapsed in the co-pilot seat, holding his wounded side. As they shot out of the breach into open space, the entire dreadship began to break apart. A wave of fire expanded behind them, lighting up the stars. Alara watched through the viewport, tears in her eyes. "It's over." Adrian looked at the burning wreck and smiled faintly. "No, it's just beginning." She turned to him. "What do you mean?" He looked down at his cracked armor, at the scars on his hands, and then at her. "Maybe now, we get to live for something again." They re-entered the atmosphere of New Terra hours later. The colony was damaged but alive. The people had fought back the remaining Visari ground troops after the dreadship's destruction had disabled their command network. When the shuttle landed, the colonists cheered. Soldiers saluted. For the first time in years, Adrian didn't look away from their faces. He felt pride again, but it was different this time. It wasn't the pride of victory. It was the pride of survival, of humanity refusing to give up. Alara helped him down the ramp. The morning sun was rising, painting the sky gold. She smiled at him, the same warm smile that had pulled him out of his darkness. "You kept your promise," she said softly. He nodded. "I told you I'd come back." "And now?" she asked. He looked toward the horizon where the colony domes shone in the new light. "Now we rebuild, together." She took his hand, and he didn't pull away. For once he allowed himself to feel the peace he'd been chasing for so long. Around them people worked, repairing walls, tending to the wounded, replanting the gardens. Children laughed again. The world was alive. Weeks passed. Adrian's wounds healed slowly, though his limp remained. Alara often found him helping the engineers repair the colony defenses, or teaching young recruits how to handle weapons safely. He never called himself a soldier anymore. At night, they would walk together to the memorial wall. The names of the fallen still glowed softly in the starlight. Adrian would stand there in silence, then glance at Alara. "You know," he said one evening, "I used to think the war took everything from me." She looked at him gently. "And now? Now I see it gave me something too. A reason to fight, a reason to come back." Alara smiled, that same small, honest smile that had saved him once before. "Then maybe," she said, "you were never broken. You just needed to remember who you were." Adrian looked up at the stars, at the fading smoke of the destroyed dreadship orbiting far above. "For a long time I thought humanity was finished," he said quietly. "But we always find a way. We always come back stronger. That's what makes us human." She squeezed his hand. "And what makes you human, Adrian?" He smiled. "You already know." The two of them stood side by side as the night deepened. Above them, the stars shimmered like old wounds healing. The war was over, for now. But something greater had begun. Adrian Cole, once a broken soldier, had found his reason to return. Not through orders, not through victory, but through the quiet courage of one woman's smile and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. And as the first dawn of peace touched the colony, he whispered to himself, "We're not done yet. Humanity always rises."